Hey friends, welcome to our Midweek Moment. Pastor Nicole here. So glad you clicked on. Well, this week we wrapped up our sermon series, Tell Me the Stories of Jesus, where we've been looking at the stories of Jesus. And we finished by looking at the story of Jesus where he heads to the temple and he flips over tables of the money changers and those who are selling animals for sacrifice. And then he chases out the buyers and the sellers. And we talked a little bit about that, what exactly was going on there, what was Jesus all riled up about. And we ended our sermon time by talking about how if we know as Christians that we are called to continue the work of Jesus, like that's what as Christians we're called to do, to continue to the work of Jesus, to continue building God's kingdom, then what tables are we called to flip in our lives or in the world or in the church or whatever it might be? So there's lots for us to think about there. We had a little reflection time at the end of the sermon, both in person and online, and I invited people to just have a few moments. We couldn't take a lot of time, but a few moments to pray about what is it that God is calling you to flip over. What metaphorical tables are you being called to flip over? And then we collected people's responses and we put them on the altar and we prayed over them. I was reading through those responses, and they were great. There were some really great responses in there, some really passionate responses that I'm kind of excited to see how God continues to move in that person's life. But there was one in particular that kind of caught my eye, and it said, "I have no idea what tables Jesus is calling me to flip over because I honestly haven't been listening to God enough." And I thought, wow, that's some really wonderful self-awareness right there, to know, like, I can't answer this question honestly because I haven't been doing this. And I think, whoo, man, there's probably more of us in that boat than we'd like to admit. I might put myself in that boat, of not listening enough. And it kind of got me thinking, that response got me thinking of, wow, how many times do we start flipping over tables without listening to God first? So what tables are we flipping over that God is like, not that table. Don't do that. I didn't want you to do that. Yeah, I think that there's probably times that we act before we ask God if that's how we should act, if that's what we should do. And I think sometimes we might get our anger and righteous anger kind of mixed up a little bit. We talked about that in the sermon too, kind of the difference between like regular old anger and righteous anger, and how righteous anger is God calling us to end an injustice in our world, or to correct a wrong, right a wrong. But if we're not listening to God, that righteous anger might just be anger. We might mistake it for righteous anger, but really it's just us being angry about something and trying to take it into our own hands to handle it. So that response just really got me thinking and kind of convicted me a little bit of like, I probably do need to be praying more, listening more to hear God leading me on which tables I'm supposed to be flipping. Because I don't want to just be out there flipping tables, I don't want to choose. I don't want to choose what should be flipped and what shouldn't. I want God to lead me in what tables need flipped over, what injustices in our world do I need to engage in, because there are so many injustices. There's so many wrongs, so many sinful things, and I can't address all of them. You can't address all of them. So we really do need to hear what it is that God is calling us specifically to do. And then we can use our gifts to do that, but we don't want to get mixed up and flipping the wrong tables. You know what I mean? So I felt convicted by that. I wanted to share that with you in case that's something that kind of touched your heart too, of a thought of, wow, I really do need to maybe spend some time asking God, hey, where is it that you want me to act? What is it that you want me to do? How should I get involved? If this is the table I'm being called to flip, how do I do that? Because that's the next step. We may know what table we need to flip, but we just don't know how. And I think God will lead us or lead somebody into our life to help us with that. So just some thoughts today on this midweek moment as we kind of wrap up the series on the stories of Jesus. Man, we could have gone on forever. I think we could have spent like 3 years looking at the stories of Jesus. But next week, we are going to start our new sermon series, Behind the Scenes, where we're looking at popular scripture taken out of context. We're going to take a look at a really famous scripture, Jeremiah 29:11. So you don't want to miss it on Sunday. Join us in person or online. We hope to see you then. Until then, have just a wonderful rest of your week, and we'll see y'all later. Bye.